one issue that we've had in the past that we see sometimes is if you want somebody to do something at very low RPE, say a 5 or 6 RPE, it's hard to differentiate that. How many reps in reserve is that? Well, at that point, we're not really talking so much about reps in reserve, at least with a classic RPE scale. It's more about bar velocity. And even if you did choose to use a strict reps in reserve definition, it's still difficult. Like, did you have 5 reps in reserve, or could you have done 6? Well, it's hard to tell at that range. Velocity does give you a discrete range to aim at. Like, you'll be able to decide up front, I want the bar to move between 0.28 and 0.30 meters per second, and that's what it is. And if it's too slow, then we take weight off. If it's too fast, then we add weight. So it's very helpful at auto-regulating at low RPEs, submax effort sets. It's also very helpful at high RPEs. I would say where it breaks down is if you're doing very high reps, say like 20 plus reps, or if you're doing multiple sets with short rest intervals. So imagine you're doing like repeated sets of 5, and your first set is like an RPE 7. Imagine you're doing bench press. Let's do bench press. You're doing repeated sets of 5 at an RPE 7, or the first set's an RPE 7, and you're doing it on like a 1 to 2 minute rest interval, and you're going to do 8 sets. By the end of that, you'll accumulate fatigue. The bar speed might still be fast, but if you were to continue, you'll notice that it drops off quicker than it does if you were fully rested. So normally, if you're fully rested and you took that same weight and you did an AMRAP with it, each rep gets progressively slower and slower until you can't complete a rep anymore. And that is going to descend at a certain rate. Let's say it's like this nice, even descent. It's not quite that, but you get the idea. We're talking about numbers, which can be a little difficult sometimes. What you'll notice if you're in that short rest interval scenario where you're a little bit fatigued is that the drop-off is much more sudden, that it'll be fast, and then you really struggle with 1 rep and there's nothing left. So you could, in theory, I guess, account for that using velocity, but it really gets to be quite complicated in terms of when you would invoke which velocity model and so on. So it's just not something that I think is worth the effort at this point.